It appears that I am live, and if that is the case, welcome to another edition. This is the 61st edition, as a matter of fact, of Con Salsa Live on Facebook and YouTube on this beautiful fall afternoon, November 8th, 2020. My name is Jose Maso, coming live from our studios here in our home D&J studios. Right behind me, you see my record collection, and this is where I'll be with you for the next 2.5 hours or so. Divina, my dear wife, is the D in D&J Studios, and I am the J in D&J Studios. And my wife is upstairs, as always, on this part of the day, preparing dinner for us so that when I finish, we can enjoy each other's company on this beautiful evening. In any case, my field director, both of them actually checked in already to say they see me and hear me. So that means that I'm good to go, both Ryan Newfo and David Calvo, and I want to thank them. Bueno, mi gente, saludos, bienvenidos a otra edición más del programa Con Salsa en vivo aquí en Facebook y YouTube cada fin de semana de 4 a 6. Hoy es el programa número 61 de programación que hacemos aquí de 4 a 6, sábado y domingo, desde el estudio de IJ de Pared Divina, mi querida esposa IJ para este servidor, José Mazo. Y hoy tendremos como invitado nuestro gran amigo, trompetista, compositor, arreglista, educador, director de su propia banda, como también animador de un programa de radio de jazz en Vermont, nada más y nada menos que Rey Vega. Estará con nosotros y tendremos conversación y música de su trayectoria musical como trompetista. Y también estaremos compartiendo otra música que espero que sea de su agrado este domingo, día 8 de noviembre. So on this day, we will have as our guest our dear friend Rey Vega, composer, arranger, band leader, educator, a veteran trumpet player with so many different bands, and also the host of his radio show on Friday in Vermont Publc Radio called Friday Night Jazz. So we're looking forward to a conversation and great music with our dear friend Rey Vega. Later on, he'll be joining us at about 4:45 or so. And as I get ready to start the music on this beautiful day, para comenzar la música, again, today's program I'm going to dedicate to all of you for participating in the electoral process this year, 2020. I'm going to dedicate it to the memory of my dear mother, Doña Leonor Rodriguez de Mazo, who passed away 10 years ago. Friday would have been her birthday, this past Friday. She would have been 103 years of age, but this weekend I'm dedicating the whole weekend to her. Also, I'm dedicating it to the memory of Cándido Camaro, the great Cuban percussionist who died yesterday at the age of 99 years old. So we have a lot to do and enjoy at this moment, and I'm going to start off with a sound check. It goes something like this. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. So let's start off with the music, all right? Vamos a comenzar con la música. No se vayan, quédense ahí.
Hace algún tiempo me preguntaba un chiquillo por el significado de la palabra patria. Me sorprendió con su pregunta y con el alma en la hermanito, como aquel viejo árbol de que nos habla aquel poema, como el cariño que aún guardas después de muerta abuela. Patria, son tantas cosas bellas. Son las paredes de un barrio y en su esperanza morena es lo que lleva en el alma todo aquel cuando se aleja. Son los mártires que gritan: bandera, bandera, bandera. A Canio y Albizú. No memorice lecciones de dictadura o encierro. La patria no la define el que suprime a su pueblo. Patria es un sentimiento en la mirada de un viejo, sol de eterna primavera, risa de hermanita nueva. Le contesto, hermanito, patria, son tantas cosas bellas. Da, 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 da. Ay, 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 da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Ah, da, 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 da. No, 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 no. Ah, la niña, da, da, da. De, de, de. Reinaldo Jorge. Anina, ga, ga, da, 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 da. De, 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 ro, ro. Ah, la niña, ga, ga, da, 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 da. De, 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 de. De, 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 de. De Panamá a Puerto Rico, patria. Muchas gracias.
Dicen Chucho, Jacinto y Ramón que la cosa está que arde. Dicen que la situación
tienen dinero a montón y otros solo dolor en la vida.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Cuando es noche allá en el Japón, por acá todavía es de día, Señor.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Botaba un tipo pan, el pan que no comía, ese mismito pan que el de atrás recogía.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira. Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Esta tierra está llena de gente, cada cual lleva un mundo en su mente.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Es por eso que te digo yo viene bien crítico, pero que chapaya, ven que no me digan nada, Señor.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Ay, aprende mi filosofía, que no hay más opinión que la mía.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Oh.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Esta vida es como una pintura, cada cual ve el color que le ayuda.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Para durar, mira, calla y aprende que en el mundo hay mil lenguas y hay mil clases de gente.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
En la vida todo es relativo, para todo hay excusa y motivo. Amigo,
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
lo que a ti te parece bonito, para otro es una porquería.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
En la vida encuentro tipos que creen que todo lo saben y no encuentran cerradura donde meten una llave.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Esta tierra está llena de gente, cada cual lleva un mundo en su mente diferente.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Para unos la vida es un sueño, para otros una pesadilla.
Todo es según el color del cristal con que se mira.
Hola amigos, es Rubén Blades. Están escuchando a José Mazó con Salsa, la voz de un pueblo nuevo.
tiene su final. Nada dura para siempre. Tenemos que recordar que no existe eternidad. Como el lindo clavel solo quiso florecer y enseñarnos su belleza y marchito perecer. Todo tiene su final. Nada dura para siempre. Tenemos que recordar que no existe eternidad. Como el campeón mundial dio su vida por llegar y perder lo más querido en las masas otro más.
Y sigue la salsa con Salsa y José Mazo. Y sigue la salsa con Salsa y José
Bueno, mi gente, escucharon al fenecido Héctor Lavoe con Willy Colón. Todo tiene su final. Así es la vida. Todo tiene su final. Comenzamos con Patria, grabado en vivo por Rubén Blades en el Choliseo allá en San Juan, Puerto Rico. Canción que, según nuestro amigo, nos dice y nos recuerda, Mike Viñas fue el arreglista para esa canción Patria, que primera vez se escuchó en el disco antecedente con Reinaldo Jorge en el solo trombón. Ahí lo escucharon en vivo en Puerto Rico del disco grabado que fue parte de la gira Todos Vuelven de Rubén Blades y 6 Son del Solar. Y saluditos en Florida. Diana Torres nos envía saludos desde Poinciana, Florida. También escuchamos Todo Según el Color, que es del disco Metiendo Mano, Willy Colón con Rubén Blades. Como he mencionado, tengo ya a mi invitado, mi querido amigo Rey Vega, en el trasfondo backstage. Mientras continuamos con la programación, él sigue ensayando con su trompeta, aprovechando el tiempo para ensayar. Y él dice, se lo está diciendo a todo el mundo, yo no quiero que la gente sepa que estoy ensayando, no se lo digan. Callado. Así de que, de cualquier manera, pronto estará con nosotros, dentro de unos 20 minutos, estará con nosotros compartiendo tiempo y música, Rey Vega. So in a little while, in about 20 minutes or so, Rey Vega will be joining us. He's backstage and he's keeping busy. And I hope that you enjoyed that musical set that started off the programming for today. I want to thank Divina for the suggestion of adding Todo Tiene Su Final as part of the set. And also I want to thank Mike Viñas for his help in tonight's programming. You'll see why a little bit later on. So as we continue with the celebration, because today is a great day to celebrate, let's dedicate this next two songs to all of the children, especially all of the young girls who yesterday saw history and have been inspired by what their future would look like. And in particular, for this beautiful young girl right here, our own Reagan Amaya.
Me gusta estar de nuevo en casa y despertarme lleno de solo. A ese café de la mañana que siempre corre hasta la cama y duerme hasta el despertador. Hoy tengo cita con la almohada y una reunión con el ventilador. Una salida con mi perro porque no entiende de pretexto y dejo en pausa mi sillón. Hoy es domingo, no hay compromisos con el reloj, porque hoy es domingo, no hay nada mejor.
Destapa un vino en la cocina y un buen asado espera en el carbón. Aunque tengamos mil problemas, hoy descansamos de las penas, alimentando al corazón. Que nadie rompa este momento, es día de celebración. Hay que brindar por la alegría, afuera la mala energía, porque mañana lunes se acabó. Hoy es domingo, no hay compromisos con el reloj, porque hoy es domingo, no hay nada mejor. Hoy igual. Se reúne la familia y amigos a celebrar.
Es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día, es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día.
Por nuestros padres, por nuestros hijos, por la luz del sol. Vaya Oscar, porque estamos vivos.
Por los momentos compartidos,
por poder cantar con los amigos,
siempre dando gracias por lo que tenemos y por cada sueño que se realizó.
Es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día, es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día.
Chirino, por el regalo de la música y por esa clave que la hace única. Familia,
Por haber sentido a plenitud el amor.
por lo que se fueron, por el que llegó.
Siempre dando gracias por lo que tenemos y por cada sueño que se realizó.
Es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día, es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar. Es un buen día, es un buen día para celebrar, para celebrar.
Y dice, Chichi, es un buen día. ¿Quién lo diría? Darle la mano a un amigo y junto con él celebrar. Saludo al mundo que está de esto pendiente. Y con amor te doy mi cariño ferviente.
Yanquis que ya yo vengo a improvisar junto a los gigantes de la salsa, los soneros de verdad.
Es un buen día para reír y cantar. No dejes de celebrar. Ay, mira que la vida es un ratito y hay que disfrutar. ¿Quién lo diría? Que estamos aquí celebrando. Sigamos todos disfrutando y que no se acabe la alegría.
Oye, y se soltaron los salsa giants otra vez.
¡Ataca, Sergio!
Queremos fiesta,
¡Agua!
queremos
Y dice,
fiesta, queremos
Esta fiesta se enciende hasta que amanezca.
hasta que amanezca.
Salsa Giants, los caballos.
Bueno, ahí escucharon Sergio George, los Salsa Giants, con un sinnúmero de cantantes, incluyendo Nora, Mark Anthony, Cheo Feliciano, que en paz descanse, Andy Montañez, ¿qué más? Tito Nieves, o sea, Alberto el Canario, Willy Chirino. Tremendo, ¿eh? Y antes de eso, escuchamos a Rubén Blades con... ¿Quién fue? Con Diego Torres. Hoy es domingo. Así que me alegro que hayan disfrutado esta selección. Soledad Salazar, me alegro que despertaste hoy domingo con esa canción en tu repertorio. De cualquier manera, estamos aquí hasta las 6:00, 6:20, 6:30. Hoy tengo como invitado a Ray Vega, que ya se encuentra backstage. We've got backstage my dear friend, our invited guest, Ray Vega, who will be joining us in about 15 minutes or so. I want to welcome you to another edition of Con Salsa Live on Facebook, YouTube. We're here every Saturday and Sunday. Next weekend, my guest will be on Saturday, Wilson Chembo Corniel, a great percussionist. And then on Sunday, will be Sammy Figueroa, another great percussionist. So this weekend, it's been a trumpet summit with my guest yesterday, Charlie Sepulveda, and then Ray Vega today. Next weekend will be a percussion summit with two great congueros, both of them leaders of their own bands. There will be Chembo Corniel and also Sammy Figueroa. So I look forward to having you as our guest this coming weekend here on Con Salsa, Facebook and YouTube Live. I want to say hello to Nancy Leon, our cousin, who's tuned in. Saludos, Nancy. Abrazos y besos. Bendiciones. My dear friend, Greg Molina. He's a very happy man because Alex Cora is managing the Red Sox once again. And Greg is one of the happiest Red Sox fans in the city of Boston right now. I know that for a fact. And we also want to say hello to Miles Harlow out there in Seattle, Washington, the son of Larry Harlow. Miles, it's good to see you, my good brother. I hope you are well and healthy, and your family as well. So many blessings, and I cheer for you and your family. And to all of you who are tuning in today. And Nadia Cruz, saluditos a ti también. Y estamos aquí saludando y celebrando. I'm going to have to translate all this, Paolo. Later, I'm going to translate this so I know how I'm going to respond to you, okay? But thank you. I will translate it, and then I will respond. Estaré respondiendo una vez que traduzca del italiano al español o inglés. Traduzco los comentarios para de esa manera responderte. También por aquí, vamos a ver. So I mentioned that on this beautiful day, there are a number of things for us to celebrate. One thing I mentioned yesterday that made the program yesterday somewhat a bittersweet program. The sweetness was, of course, that we now have President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who has made history as the first woman to occupy that position, the first woman of color to occupy that position. So we are, of course, elated. And I mentioned that yesterday's speech last night, many children around the United States and probably around the world who tuned in, including that beautiful girl right there, our granddaughter, Reagan Amaya, who has been asking for this card every single time when she gets a school picture. They convert the school picture to this future president of the United States, and that is the future president of the United States. She will be running in the year, I think, 44, I think that says. And I'm getting ready to make sure that I give her first donation, so when she decides to run, she has at least a little nest egg from which she can start her campaign. But you see her right there, future president. Remember, Reagan Amaya Maso Pratt, okay? And like her, many girls, I'm sure, are inspired at this moment to follow the footsteps of Kamala Harris. And I said it was bittersweet because even though we were celebrating the new future for the states of the United States, we also lost this great percussionist at the age of 99, Cándido Camaro. And as we start this next set, we're going to hear the voice of Jose Madera, the great percussionist and arranger, the son of Jose Ping Madera. He'll be speaking in Spanish as he introduces a song that was arranged by his father and recorded by Machito and his Afro-Cubans, which featured Cándido Camaro on congas, and it's titled, the selection is titled Rey del Mambo. But here's Jose Madera speaking about Cándido and his presence and contribution to our music. Vamos a escuchar al gran Jose Madera, percusionista y arreglista, hijo de José Ping Madera, hablando sobre Cándido Camaro, quien falleció ayer a la edad de 99 años, y también como parte de la introducción una canción grabada por Machito, que fue un arreglo de José Ping Madera, el rey del mambo. Escuchemos.
todos, les habla José Madera aquí y voy a coger un minuto o dos para hablar hoy de el fallecimiento de un gran percusionista, uno de los mejores en el mundo entero, Candido Camero. La primera vez que vi a Candido tocando fue en la grabación de Machito del LP Kenia, que se hizo en Nueva York en 1957. Candido y Patato tocan las congas en esa grabación. Tuve la oportunidad de verlo tocar a él muchísimas veces en muchísimas presentaciones durante la carrera mágica que tuvo en la música latina. Un cuento que les voy a hacer ahora es que la primera vez que Candido vino a Nueva York fue en el año 1946 y la primera grabación que hizo fue con la orquesta de Machito en una canción intitulada El Rey del Mambo. Entonces ese arreglo fue hecho por mi papá, José Pin Madera. Y si van al link abajo, ahí y lo tocan, pueden escuchar esta rendición del Rey del Mambo con Machito y su orquesta, Candido en la conga y el arreglo de mi padre José Pin Madera. A gozarlo.
Tico 10-05052A, matrix number E3627, El Rey del Mambo, Machito and his Afro-Cubans.
A gozar con mi mambo, a gozar con mi mambo. No, 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 mira, a gozar con mi mambo, a gozar con mi mambo. No, 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 con su la mambo, 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 ya matando, mambo, ya
Ayude a prevenir el COVID-19 con distanciamiento social. Use el teléfono, FaceTime o mensajes en línea para comunicarse con sus amigos y familiares. Quédese en su casa el mayor tiempo posible. No se reúna en grupos. Manténgase a una distancia de 6 pies o 2 metros de las demás personas. Evite estrechar las manos o dar abrazos. Y por favor, continúe lavándose las manos con frecuencia. Visite mass.gov/COVID-19 o llame al 211. Un mensaje del Departamento de Salud Pública de Massachusetts.
Yo le canto a la que a mí me trajo al mundo, a la que en su dolor iluminó mi vida. Mujer hermosa, dama querida, de corazón de fuego y de un alma divina. Hoy yo le canto al corazón de aquella reina, la de la fuerza, del amor y del encanto, que con sus manos y con su canto de forma milagrosa secaba mi llanto. Esa es mi madre, esa es mi vieja, esa es la doña del humor y la alegría, la de colores infinitos en sus ojos, la de la música, del baile y la poesía. Dios te bendiga, madre querida, que Dios te guarde y te proteja desde el más allá, y que mañana te cumplan todos tus sueños. Y hoy te canto con empeño porque tú eres mi mamá. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi mamá. Ajá. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi mamá. Madre, dueña de la risa, reina del encanto, y las aves del campo no cantan si tú no estás. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi entre todas las flores del campo. Oye, mamita, como tú no hay otra igual. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi mujer. Si puedes tú con Dios hablar, dile que me diga que tú quieres para Navidad. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi voy caminando en tus huellas, voy siguiendo aquella estrella que ilumina mi cantar. Esto es para ti, madre querida. Soy el resultado de tu dolor, soy el fruto de tu amor, por eso te dedico mi cantar. Hoy le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi madre, como tú no hay otra en esta vida, y esa es la pura verdad. Hoy yo le canto a mi vieja, le canto a mi mamá, esa que me da consejos, que me quiere como quiera, le canto a respeto y admiración por siempre ser un pilar. Le canto a cuando ya en el mes de mayo yo te sacaré a bailar, le canto a mi mamá, y así será para todas las madres del mundo.
And so we concluded the hour with Ray Barretto from the album titled Ancestral Messages. Ray Barretto, The New World Spirit. Selection written by our guest, Ray Vega, arranged by our guest, Ray Vega. And that was recorded on Concord Picante back in 1993, featuring Ray on congas, Ray Vega on trumpet and flugelhorn and percussion, Jay Rodriguez tenor sax and flute, Hector Mantignon on piano and synthesizers, Jairo Moreno was on bass, Satoshi Tegishi was on drums with Alfredo Gonzalez on the guiro. And before that, we heard the sound of the V Project. That's the project I've been sharing with you, Mike Viñas and friends, who have been gathering for workshops every week. The V Project Workshop is it's reversed. The V Workshop Project includes Victor Rendon on timbales arranger, Michael Viñas on bass as the producer, Connie Grossman on flute, Joe Manozzi on piano, Dan Gormley on guitar, Suyo Kimura on bongo and bell, Lee Jeffries is on drums, Paul Carlin is on tenor sax, Ala Costa alto sax, Luis Camacho on trumpet, Sam Levitian on trumpet, and Chembo Corniel, who will be my guest next Saturday, is on congas and guiro. And that was titled Nana, composed by the Brazilian Moacir Santos. And before that, we heard Michael Bermudez, his new one, off his new album, En Mi Voz, the selection Mama, which was written by our dear friend Jeremy Bosch. And I dedicate that song from the album En Mi Voz to my dear mother. As I mentioned before, she would have been 103 years old this past Friday, celebrating her birthday, but she died at the age of 93. So God bless her, always in my memory, my beautiful mother. And with that, I then say it's time to welcome our guest. He has been backstage patiently waiting, making good use of his time. Many of you know him as an exceptional trumpet player. You may also know him as a composer, arranger, a band leader, a veteran of many different bands in salsa and in jazz and Latin jazz, and an educator at Vermont, teaching at the university in the music department, and also the host of a Friday night jazz program called Friday Night Jazz on Vermont Publc Radio. The one and only, our dear friend, Ray Vega. Ray, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Well, yes, thank you. First and foremost, I thank you for joining us. You and I communicated earlier. I read the news of the passing of your mother-in-law, Pilar. So my condolences to you and to Miriam Cookie and to the family. And
thank you.
And again, you know, we could have done this at another time, but you decided that you would do it. So thank you for joining us. You have some welcomes here. Let me show you some people here saying welcome. You've got Victor, bienvenido maestro. Scott,
thank you.
Scott Dean says,
my man. That's Scott, that's my conga player, brother.
There you go, Scott. Salsa Galicia says bienvenido. So you've got some folks who are saying welcome to the show. So we heard some great music there. You made a comment about the flute playing.
Connie Grossman. That's my girl. She's from the Bronx, man.
Another Bronx girl. She tore it up, right? Tore it up.
And let me tell you something. This is important that we honor our educators.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because Connie Grossman mentored a young classical guitarist by the name of Carlos Enriquez. And then she talked him into becoming the bassist. And now he is the bassist with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Connie was the one that talked him into becoming. So we have to honor our educators, and I give it up to Connie. First of all, she's a killing flautist, and she's a wonderful educator. So man, right on, Connie. I hope she's around.
The role. You know, yesterday we had your dear friend who says hello, by the way, Charlie Sepulveda, and we were talking about the connections. How some people are so blessed to have somebody that connects them to the next chapter in their life, right? The fact that Connie was the one that connected Carlos Enriquez, who's a monster now, of course, and world known.
World renowned. Yes.
Is that little, you know, you saw like, what was the picture before the picture that made that picture what it is today, right? And you're right, the educators play a great role, of which you are now a major educator at Vermont. How long have you been doing that?
I've been at the University of Vermont for 12 years. This fall semester is my 12th fall semester.
So I want to talk about how it was that you became who you are, but let's go backwards. We're going to start with you teaching in Vermont, and then we're going to go back to the beginning. How was it you became a music professor in Vermont, of all places? I mean, it wasn't like you became a professor like Bobby in New York, Manhattan.
Actually, I was.
Okay.
I was, yeah. I taught at the, I'm just looking out the window. Somebody's walking their dogs, and they have I'm in Vermont, so somebody's walking their dogs, and they have these lights on so the cars won't hit them.
I got you.
That's interesting. But no, I taught at Purchase, New York State University at Purchase. I was there from 2002 to 2008, and I was called in by Todd Coleman. Well, it was John Faddis that got me in. John Faddis and Doug Monroe and Todd Coleman, they brought me in, and I conducted the Latin Jazz Orchestra there for all those years. I had trumpet students and I had jazz combos, and then I taught jazz history. So no, I've been teaching at college level since 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's 18 years. 18 years of sharing your knowledge. 18 years of sharing your knowledge. So we're going to go back, but there's several other people who are saying hello. So I want to make sure that we get there. Mary Kent, good to see you, Ray.
Yeah, man.
David Romero, who's out there in Las Vegas.
There we go, my man. Yes, indeed.
And Navarez, welcome, Ray Vega.
The trumpet man. There we go, my man.
And our dear friend Chemo
the
Corniel.
one and only. My other conga player.
Yeah. He also joins me in sending his condolences to you and your family. Our dear friend Egel Nevares, saludos Reyes de Puerto Rico.
That's my man.
There you go.
Yes, indeed. La Tropica from Boston.
Yeah, you got it.
That's
Then Victor Rivera, our mentors are priceless in our communities. The legacy is secure. Yes, the role of mentors is important. So let's go back. You're a Bronx kid, another Bronx kid. Charlie, who is with us, another Bronx kid. You know, the Bronx is in the house, as they say.
Indeed.
So how was it that you, in particular, found that niche in your life, which is called music, and then the trumpet?
Okay, so it's a great question. In the summer of 1973, I went to a concert in Central Park that was produced by Felipe Luciano. And in that concert, he featured, the opening act was a brand new band that had just recorded called Típica 73. They opened up for the Machito Orchestra. So when I went there with my brother Ralph, who, I'm the youngest of 5 sons. So we always look up to our older brothers or sisters, right? So my eldest brother, who's always into music, and his love with music was he liked Latin music, big band music, and jazz and stuff. And his connection with the music in a big way was that he worked at the Rainbow Room in New York, and he befriended people, members of the Duke Ellington Orchestra, as well as Mr. Ellington. He became they would call him Mr. Ralph, and also Lionel Hampton's orchestra. This is early 1970s at the Rainbow Room. So my brother would bring all of these great recordings home. So we went to this concert in Central Park, the Central Park Band Show, and it was Típica 73. It was the original version, the one with Rennie Lopez on trumpet and what do you call that? Rennie Lopez and oh God, I'm having a senior moment here, but yeah, Joe Minazzi on trumpet and Leopoldo Pineda, and I heard them and they were wild. It sounded just like the record. That's the first thing I remember. Was like, wow, that sounds just like the record. And then Machito's band came out. We saw these guys come up, con la maleta, the music, and they were all like, man. And Mario Balsa went, he goes, and the band started, and that audience, which was made up primarily of the kids that would hang out in Central Park at the rumbas, with all the congueros and frisbees, and everybody was doing everything that they did in the early 1970s. All the young people, and those young people went crazy. I never felt it's like a powerful energy bomb. Well, it started with Típica. When they came out, it was like, whoa, yeah, man, whoa, this is killing. This is whoa, this is bad. Whoa, these guys are killing it. Johnny Rodriguez with one conga and Orete playing bongo and timbal. Johnny on one conga, killing it. A conga standing up. That's what Johnny was playing. And then Macho's band came out, and I went, oh my, what? And I saw Mario outside playing that saxophone. I was like, and no, of course, back then we always read album covers and the credits, and I was into that. And so I thought to myself, man, I want to play music. So I started to watch as much TV. And this is our dark ages for all of you young kids out there. We didn't have the internet, so we didn't have. Let me look up Machito online and find everything. We had to really go out of our way to find the information. And so I started to look up what this music was about, get the encyclopedia, look up jazz. And so Mario Balsat played the alto saxophone. Wow, that's great. Then I saw a TV show with Jackie McLean. It was a tribute to Charlie Parker. And I saw he was playing the alto sax. I was like, boy, the alto sax is calling me. So what happened was I started middle school. I started what they call middle school now. Back in the day, it was junior high school, 149. I know it's taken a long time to get to it, but I started 7th grade. And so I did the first semester of 7th grade with my class. And it just so happened that the Board of Education opened up a school closer to my house called IS 183. And they said, we're going to send all the students over there. But Raymond, your grades are good, and we're putting you in what they call an SP class, which is like kids. But you're going to have to learn how to play a musical instrument coming January. And I went, oh, alto saxophone, yeah. So I went there, and this is where the story goes real down at this point. So I go there, and Mr. Brzezowski, my band instructor, he goes, Raymond, what instrument would you like to play? I went, I want to play the E-flat alto saxophone. He goes, we don't have them. And then he says, all we have is trumpets and trombones. And I look over, and there was a little kid, and he had like little arms, and he's playing the trombone, and he's going. And all I can hear in my head when I saw the trombone was, da 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 da.
Yeah, really good.
And I thought to myself, and I loved Willie Colon, I loved all of that, but it was like going, and the kid sounded terrible. And I'm going, no. So all they said that then they had a trumpet, and my brother Ralph used to mess around with a trumpet. Okay. So then he gave me a trumpet. It smelled terrible. I don't even want to tell you how bad it smelled. And I started to play the instrument, and it wasn't a good start. But you start to, this is the thing, bro. Again, music was important on the radio in New York. Radio Wado, WHOM, what was his name? Max Salazar on Saturdays. I think it was WKCR. I think WKCR, and then Felipe Luciano on Sundays. And then when he left, there was a guy named Roger Dawson, but he wasn't as hip as Felipe.
Yeah,
Felipe was a poet. He was speaking our language as New Yorkers. And so he was such an important. If Felipe is out there watching, he knows how much I love him. He was connecting to who we were as New Yorkers, and he spoke our language because it was Spanish and English. So so anyway, I started in middle school, and I was terrible, but I liked doing it. And a year later, I auditioned for the High School of Music and Art, and I got in. I took an audition. I was terrible. I know that. I wasn't very good. I mean, I had some great, very talented kids at school with me, but I was a kid from the South Bronx, man. I'm at a specialized high school. It was my first time being in school with kids that were different than me. It wasn't all African Americans and Boricuas and Dominicans. It was like, now we got, as far as Latinos, it's Colombiano, Ecuadoriano, everything. And then the full spectrum of Asians and then white folks. I didn't go to school white, except like maybe one or two kids in our classes. And the only white folks that we dealt with at school were our teachers. Now I'm in school. So folks might think, oh, wow, you live such a covered life. I'm from the hood, yo.
From the Bronx,
man.
From the Bronx. From the Bronx.
That was the deal. And so if anybody finds that kind of interesting, it is what it is. And it's the reality of the situation. I'm not making fun of it in any way. It was the reality. I mean, that's an situation right now in
sure. No, that's the situation around urban communities all throughout the United States. Segregation in the sense of that many of the schools are of one ethnicity and whatnot. Let me pause you for a second because we've got some folks Here, Victor is saying he remembers Bethesda Fountain in Central Park where the jamming took place. He remembers also Symphony Sid on the radio.
Dick Ricardo Sugar. That was another show.
There you go.
Oh, my God.
And then we've got greetings from Jose Arroyo.
Chéverón.
Our dear friend Michael Viñas. Vaya Rey. Te manda saludos. Te manda saludos. And then speaking about Felipe Luciano, I just found out last week, I listened to his show on Saturdays, Latin Roots, that he had quadruple surgery. He's recovering. Thank God he's recovering. He let us know via the radio that he's at home, he's recovering, and everything went well. But you can imagine, what he went through. Quadruple surgery is no joke. But we send him our prayers and hoping that he does better. Y aquí nuestra amiga Angelina Medina Quiroga desde Perú, Lima, Chancao. Saludos para ti de parte de nuestra amiga Angelina.
Oh, man, I love her, man.
The fact that you mentioned that one moment of seeing Típica knocked you out, but then seeing Machito and his Afro-Cubans took you to the next level. It's how old would you have been back then? This is 1973.
1973, I was 12 years old.
12 years old.
No, but 12. 17, I was born in 61.
12 years old. 12 years old.
I just became 12.
And the reason I asked that question, I'm glad you shared that anecdote. For those of you who are watching, the importance of the arts and music and culture, be it dance, be it theater, be it poetry, whatever expression that is artistic, and children are able to participate as both sharing their talent, but also as an audience in these theaters. Luba Mason told us her first time she walked into a theater to see a Broadway, it was a musical, and she was blown away just about the whole ambience of being in a theater. I always share the fact that when I was 6 years old, my father, who was in the United States Army, like his brothers and contemporaries in Puerto Rico, he served in the Second World War. He was an officer. He was a captain. When they transferred him to Japan, he took my older brother, my older sister, and myself to Japan. That's where I learned English, continued Spanish at home, and then Japanese, my friends. But my first musical concert, Ray, was Pérez Prado in Japan, of all places, with a big band. I still have the program right behind me. I have the program from the concert signed by Pérez Prado. Wow. And similar to you, as a 6-year-old, I was blown away by the horns, the percussion, and more so by the audience, because I was in an audience which was made predominantly by Japanese and Army officers. Army personnel. And I just was blown away by the whole atmosphere and the music. The music was just like, Pérez Prado with that big band, 22 pieces and whatnot. You're like, what? So that's the show. If you have children, you saw my grandson, Carmelo, with me, who I had on my lap a little bit earlier on. This kid can dance, and he's already into every single percussion instrument you can find. He is already picking them up and trying to do his thing, and is learning how to do clave. And I believe the more we expose our children to all of these different forms of arts, they will find a niche. They will find their passion, just like you and me. They will find that one thing that says, this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So then you study, you go, and then how is it you move to the next level from a student to then playing the trumpet with bands and whatnot?
Well, I was a trumpet. Hello, honey. My daughter came in. So what I was playing trumpet in high school. Look, Marcus Miller was at school. Marcus Miller, the bass player, the great producer of Miles Davis. He was a little older than me. Mm-hmm. Omar Hakim, the drummer from Weather Report. Mm-hmm. Kenny Washington, the great jazz drummer. Bobby Franceschini, the tenor player that plays with Willie Colon and all these people. Bobby was in the school. These were people that played at a real high level. I was still from the hood, yo. You know what I'm saying? I had a lot of stuff to get together. And so I went there. I wasn't the most talented kid. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anybody there thought I was going to make it, to be honest with you. But I did have really good ears. I got to tell you something. It took me several years to realize that I'm dyslexic. Nobody was telling me that. But as my friend Gary Bartz told me, he goes, man, your eyes might be dyslexic, but your ears ain't dyslexic, because the information, it can be complicated, and so learning the deeper parts of jazz theory and stuff was always incredibly difficult for me. So anyway, so I went to high school and finished, and then from there I went to Long Island University.
Which one was that? What university?
Long Island University of Brooklyn Center, right there in downtown Brooklyn, where the old Brooklyn RKO, where they did all the big band concerts. It's that building there, right there on the corner of Flatbush and whatever over there in downtown Brooklyn. So that's where the old RKO is. So I went there. I had a double scholarship for jazz and for classical. And, I was not guided well in college, man. I was not. I was just kind of like, no, there was no guidance. There was no real guidance home. Like, oh, you got to go to college. It was just like, whatever. Take care of your stuff, kid. My father was not the kind of father who was like going to be going, okay, well, no, it wasn't like that. It was like, you better figure it. It was the old.
You're on your own.
You better figure it out, homie.
You're on your own.
You're on your own. Yeah. So yeah. So it was you're on your own. So from there, I was in college for a couple of years, and then my friend David Russell helped me to get and I did little odd jobs, and I was playing with little groups, grupitos, and stuff like that. I was playing with a mentor of mine, Doc Russell, who was a jazz guitar player in Brooklyn. And he helped me out a lot. He kind of took me by the hand, but it wasn't heavy. I was playing with some groups that played Christian music and stuff like that, and gospel music and stuff like that and stuff. And then I wound up leaving college and then entering the world of private banking, working at the Bankers Trust Company of New York. So I started to do that, and while I was doing that, then I met my girlfriend, who became my wife. And I decided, well, you're hooky. So I said, well, I got married young, bro. I got married at 21. And it's not that I had to, okay, yo. Que no se ponga la gente con esa cosa, okay? Anyway, so so I was working at the bank, and while I was at the bank, I was studying with Henry Novak, who, when he was in Puerto Rico, was the trumpet teacher to Luis Perico Ortiz, to also Elia Lopez studied with him. He's a classical trumpet player from the University from the El Conservatorio de Música de Puerto Rico. I was studying with Henry Novak and a guy named Lonnie Hillier, who played with Charles Mingus, and a guy named Bob Rogovin. So then I got married and I did banking. But at this point, me estoy metiendo con bandita. At that time, there was a lot of work. So there was all the salsa gigs coming up. So I would be working like funk and R&B gigs at the Crazy Horse in New Rochelle. And then I would go conjuntos at these little places after hours. La gente no sabe lo que son after hours because they don't exist anymore. But that's where we learned the trade of the music. That's what we learned. Bilongo, Compadre Pedro Juan. We learned that stuff all by ear. It was all guataca, what we call. So I was doing that. And the thing was, bro, I developed asthma in 1984, October of 1984. I had met Tony Barrero, trumpet player, and he got me on a Louis Ramirez gig, and I'm dying on the gig. Like, I can't breathe. And I get home that night, and I wound up getting hospitalized. So I met Tony Barrero, through Marco Rizzo, who was a great producer. He was a great arranger that Candido had played with.
Right. He's the one that I Love Lucy, right?
I Love Lucy, yeah. So I met Tony Barrero, and then he took me in a Louis Ramirez gig because I think he saw that I had some potential. God rest his soul. He's not with us anymore. But I got really sick, and then I was so not happy working at the bank that I finally, come January of the following year, I just quit. I quit without any work, but knowing que yo tenía una bandita por ahí, un conjunto, because my rent was really low. My rent was low. My wife was working, y yo siempre me la busco. You know what I'm saying? Yo no soy uno de esos tipos que me tiro para atrás. Si se tiene que mapear el piso y que me paguen algo, yo me pongo. I'm serious. That's what I grew up doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, my name started to float around. So by then I played with Casanova a little bit. I played with Meñique, but this is the kind of stuff that was happening in New York because there was so much work. by the midsummer, I got with Ray Ramos y su Sonora, which was a great band based out of the Bronx. And I don't think they ever got the credit or the props that they should have, because they were a top level band. But there was we did some work for Marty Arrett and all of that, but it was a great band. It was all cats from the neighborhood, from the Bronx, the neighborhood that I was living in. Then I went to play with Louis Ramirez for a couple of months, but I was always looking for the next thing. October of that year, I got with Luis Perico Ortiz. And then from there, with Perico, playing with, I left Perico's band, went back to Louis Ramirez. In the salsa thing, I played with Adalberto Santiago with his band, Hector Lavoe, Tito Nieve, La India, Mark Anthony. This is all the list is long. The list is long, but there's one name. There's one name, and I remember enjoying you. I emceed a gig with you playing with Perico, but one name that sticks out is this one. Mongo Santa Maria. Oh, yeah.
And this is a track that you wrote.
Yeah.
Kubop Alert. Del disco Soca Me Nice.
Yeah.
La canción que lleva el título Kubop Alert, composición y arreglo de Ray Vega, quien también, además de ser trompetista, compositor y arreglista, es percusionista, del cual estaremos hablando con él sobre eso también. We're going to talk about Ray because not only is he a composer and arranger, he's also a percussionist. But here's his track with Mongo Santa Maria. Let's not go there yet.
All right.
Mongo on congas, Johnny Almendra on traps and timbales. You had Humberto Ñegue Hernandez on bongo and percussion. Bob Cuarenta was on piano. Ray Martinez on bass. You on trumpet and flugelhorn. Bobby Porcelli, alto sax, baritone, and flute. Mitch Froman, tenor sax and flute. Marty Scheller, conductor. And the selection titled Kubop Alert on Concord Gigante back in 1988. And so how is it?
So that's a great question. What happened was, I met Johnny Almendra through the same band that I met Tony Barrero, which was a group put together for Marco Rizza. It was actually the McDonald's Latin American Orchestra that they mixed professional musicians with some young kids. I was there. Jay Rodriguez, a saxophone player, was there, and that's why I met a lot of older cats. It was coordinated by Victor Venegas, the bass player. So I met Johnny Almendra, and we stayed in contact. And then Johnny dropped my name to Mongo, as well as a saxophonist that was with the band for a short period of time named Luis Disla. So, so they called me, they contacted me, Jack Hook, Mongo's manager. Jack Hook here. Yeah, we want to. That's how he would talk. So anyway, so we did, my first gig with Mongo was at the Apollo Theater in 1987. Like October, I want to say October of 87. And then a couple of days later, we went to Twin Cities Jazz Festival in St. Paul. And then I stayed on the band for 4.5 years. And, Mongo, dude, let's just be real. I was not ready for that. I was I was green and dumber than a box of rocks, bro. I was just a young kid, like, whoa, wow, instead of just like, hey, but I think Mongo saw something in me, and I stayed on the band, and he encouraged me to write. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. The first night that I got a chance to talk to Mongo, like hang out with him a little bit, we were heading to our gig in St. Paul, and he made a comment about the music business, and he goes, "Sabe algo? Uno tiene que tener agradecimiento por las situaciones que vienen a su vida." In other words, he was talking about cats that don't appreciate good gigs and they complain all the time, and I was like, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the man. With me, Mongo was a man of few words, but he didn't have to be a man of a lot of words. He didn't have to talk a lot. His history was right there. The fact that he even allowed me to be part of that is, to me, a miracle of God. And I, I thank God for every moment, every second that I traveled around the world with Mongo. Otra cosa para que la gente lo sepa. So people notice, a lot of young cats out here, what they want to do is they want the best of everything. Oh, I'm going to go on a gig. Well, no, I got to get this, that, and the other. Mongo Santa Maria was on the trains with us for the 17-hour train rides on those Euro trains. Okay, he could have flown first class because he deserved it, but he wanted to be with the guys. Okay, Mongo had a rod in his leg from an accident when he was on the bus accident with Paris Prado. Okay, and he always walked with a little bit of a limp. Now, and I know because he was sleeping in the bunk on top of me, and you could hear that he was uncomfortable. But Mongo he just said, "No, this is what we're gonna do." He wasn't trying to be like, "Well, I'm gonna fly first class, and the rest of y'all can sit on these trains because I gotta save some money." He was like, "No, I've got to be with the band." He was a heavy cat, man. Loved him some baseball. Loved him some baseball, man. He loved baseball, and he knew all the music that was coming out of Cuba. He was all into that. If it was already, and mind you, no internet. Mongo's had his finger on the pulse of all the hip stuff coming out of Cuba. He was a deep cat, man. A lot of history. And then I went to play with other groups.
And as David said, you are renowned in the music business as someone that if you were asked,
it ain't gonna happen.
How was it that Mongo was able to communicate? You would say, because he sounded like this.
It ain't gonna happen, bro. No, I don't need any of his family coming back to me going, "Yo, you shouldn't be doing that."
But you had his voice, you had his style down.
Yeah, I had his style down. David Romero, don't start that, man.
Many of us have enjoyed you when you do speak.
There's a great story, about Mongo. So I'm on the gig, right? This is my second gig with the band at the St. Paul Jazz Festival, Twin Cities Jazz Festival. I think that hasn't happened. They defunct years ago. So for the gig at the Apollo, we did like 5 tunes. But now for the big gig, it's all these other tunes, and I got to sight read this stuff on the gig. So he goes, we played Afro Blue. So I'm telling you, I'm going, come candela. Then he goes, Moda Pareda. And I went, Moda Pareda. And I'm like my mother used to say, "Está sudando la gota gorda." I'm like going, "Oh my God, there's no charge." So I go to Bob Corranta, who's a musical director. I go, "Bob, I don't know this tune, Moda Pareda." He goes, "No, Ray, that's Smooth Operator." Moda Pareda. I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, man." But Mongo, he was a serious cat, and I was just a dumb joking. But the thing was, there was a lot of responsibility when I came on the band because soon after when Tony Henson left, he used to be the announcer. So Johnny had done some gigs with uno grupito that I used to put together, and Johnny goes to Mongo, "Oye, Mongo, Rey habla bien en el micrófono, déjalo que lo haga." And he goes, "Tú habla en el micrófono. Habla." Because Mongo didn't want to talk at that. In the old days, Mongo would introduce everybody. At this point, he was just like, "I don't want to talk on a mic." So then I'm the young, dumb kid on the band is the one going, "Ladies and gentlemen, on Congress." It was kind of comical, But I'm so thankful. You know what, man?
Years.
Marty Scheller told me something that was deep. He goes, "Ray, you got the tail end of that. Man, we used to go out for 7 weeks at a time. We worked. This is another thing, and that's how we learned about the music. I mean, it's so important to be with a cat or cats that are older than you, that have paid some dues in a different thing, so they can straighten your dumb ass out, excuse the French, from being so stupid out here and thinking that everything is a certain way. Man, look, Mongo straightened me out. Tito straightened me out. Barreto took me to school and back, but in a loving way. Those guys talk, and the other one, my four big ones, and there's a fifth one too, and a sixth one. There's a couple of them. There's a lot of cats there, but Mario Balsa was the fourth one. And then the stories, I played with Palmieri a little bit after Tito died.
Yep,
and man, Palmieri is a wealth of information about the music business. You know what I'm saying? But Palmieri would always deal with us like we were his contemporaries. It wasn't like the band leader kind of guy. So I didn't get that thing from him. It was more like, you know, hey, the beauty. You know how Eddie is. He's the beauty of the music. He doesn't like to play that Sergeant Slaughter shit. He doesn't. Sorry. He doesn't like to do that. So Eddie's different. I learned from a lot of cats. Eddie Palmieri, Larry Harlow. I play with Larry. Larry's my man. And one of the cats that I learned a lot from was Louis Ramirez, who doesn't get any credit. He doesn't get any credit, man. He was a Quincy Jones of Latin music. He was a Quincy Jones of our music. Don't get the credit. But I'm thankful. You know, I'm thankful for all these people. But did I get ahead of myself?
No. You're right on. Let's do a quick.
Oye, tipo habla.
No, por eso que está aquí como invitado. Sepan ustedes, Rey Vega, educador, también tiene su propio programa de radio los viernes. Friday Night Jazz en la emisora de radiodifusión pública en Vermont. Lo pueden escuchar, yo lo escucho, tremendo programa radial. Y por aquí vienen algunos saluditos. Rafael Muriel, una leyenda de Latin Jazz, Rey Vega, una inspiración. Saludos.
Bendiciones, brother. Chéverón.
Aquí Melissa dice, remembering you playing with Mongo at Ronnie Scott's in London. Tremendo. You were hot. Yeah, Ronnie Scott's. David Romero thanked you and applauded the fact that you did a little bit of Mongo.
That's right.
And Sammy Figueroa, who's going to be our guest next Sunday. He's going to be our guest next Sunday, Sammy Figueroa. Saturday will be Chembo, and Sunday will be Sammy.
I'm gonna be cool with Chembo, but Sammy, I want to get Sammy's my boy, but Chembo's my boy too. But Sammy, no. He's the best. I'm sorry. He's the best. Oh my God. What a blessing, man.
So before we continue, I played that cut, New World Spirits, that you wrote with Ray Barretto. And you mentioned Ray and your experience with Ray. Talk a little bit about how was it that we now know how you got into the Mongo Santa Maria's band. So how was it then that you got into Ray's band? How did that happen?
So what happened was I started to play with Mongo in October 1987. In May of 1990, Ray Barretto had a sextet that he put together. Ray Barretto put together a septet with 3 horns, but the guy that he was going to use couldn't make the gig. But this septet was a Latin jazz group. It was a group that recorded on a record called it's the first record on Concord Records. Okay. So I go to do so Ray calls me because I had done some subbing on Ray's salsa band. You know, Préstame tu mujer, that band, right? So Ray tells me, Papa, this is Ray, Papa, I got a trip to Europe, Papa. Yeah, can you sub on the band? I went, sure, Ray. So I went on there, and it was like the Ray Barretto, I forget what he called it. Didn't have New World Spirit. So I did that. I did Barretto and Mongo simultaneously for a while. And that was kind of like, I drove, what? Thank you.
Mom's hat is behind you. Can I have it, please?
There you go.
Thank you.
Oye, como maleta de la familia. Bye, honey. I love you too, baby girl.
I love you too.
There we go, honey. Love you, girl. All right. Anyway, so anyway, I was doing both bands simultaneously, but then it became really difficult, and I had to leave Ray. Mongo just had more work, and so stayed with Mongo, and then I left Mongo in 1992. I left Mongo in 1992 in May, and a trip with Mario Balsa comes up. Mike Mossman couldn't make the tour because he was out with Jerry Mulligan's band. So I got on Mario Balsa's band for that summer tour, which is about 9 weeks. It was long, and it was Mario's first time in Europe. Unbelievable. We did all the jazz festivals, Pori, Pori Jazz Festival, or everything. We did not Marciac. No, we did Montreux. It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
It was unbelievable. And boy, let me tell you something. The most important part for that gig for me was hanging out afterwards and listening to the conversations at the bar with him and Victor Paz and Patato and Rudy Casado and Manny Duran. That was a college experience on a whole nother level. That was some deep stuff. That was history on a whole different level. So then Mike Mossman came back to the band, and I was freelancing around. And then Barreto decides October of 92 that he wants to put together a new band.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go out, maybe it's more like August of that year. He decides he's going to put together a new group. And I joined a band, and that would be the group that the New World Spirit. But what happened was he was calling it the New World Ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
The New World Ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that first tour was. And that band was Jairo Moreno on bass, Hector Martignon piano, Satoshi Takeshi on drums, Ray Barreto, Jay Rodriguez, and myself. So I wrote a tune for that tour called New World Spirit. And then he wound up calling the band New World Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it wound up going. But I was with that band from 92 up until right before I bought my house in the Bronx. 95, I was Ray Barreto, and then I got the call to play with Tito. So I did Tito and Ray Barreto at the same time.
Wow.
Ay, Dios mío, that was rough, man. Balancing both things. But it was great. I was, Tito had left the band, and I knew Tito I had been subbing with Tito since 88. Because I got to meet them when we were splitting the bill at the Blue Note. They would do the February Latin Jazz Festival. So they put Bongo opposite Tito. So I got to meet Tito. But I had already played with Tito, subbed on the band back when I was in Perico's band back years before that. Mm-hmm. But the subbing stuff started because through Jimmy Frizora. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy started to call me. And so when Pito left the band, Johnny Rodriguez, I love Johnny. He goes to Tito, hey, Tito, what do we do? Who should we call? And he goes, hey, call Ray Vega. He makes me laugh. It wasn't like, yeah, man, Ray Vega's a great trumpet player. It wasn't about that, man. It was like, yeah, because I would have him in stitches in the back room. That was, man, see, but people don't realize, man. I'm never going to talk about the gig and the music. I'm going to tell you about the stories we heard in the back room. The stories that I heard between Frank West and Jimmy Heath and James Moody with some of the dirtiest stuff I've ever and look. I had a chance to do the Dizzy Gillespie alumni band for like a week, but I knew those guys because they would always play salsa meets jazz, and it was part of the New York scene. But the back room stories, that was gold after the gig. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about but I love those stories, and I share those stories more than anything else. But it was a learning experience with all those cats. So then I got on Tito's band, and then I did Tito and Barreto. I started with Tito on my birthday in 1993, and I did both bands till like I want to say the beginning of the summer of 90. It was like the spring of 95, and I was out with Ray, and I was going to buy a house, and then I missed my connection to come back to the States, and Tito fired me. Yo como sinvergüenza de la vida, Johnny Rodriguez tells me, Ray, Tito says stay home. And I'm thinking to myself, yo, I'm closing on a house, man. So the next morning, I went to Newark Airport from the Bronx. I paid for my ticket because I had all my airline tickets in advance. They would give it to me. I go to the airport, and all of a sudden, Tito walks up. They meet me. Like you get a flight from Madison, Wisconsin to someplace else. So I met them at the someplace else before they got on the next flight. And Tito comes in, he goes, what are you doing here? And I go, I'm on the gig. And he slapped me in the back of the head, and that was it. But I got fired. No, Tito fired me. He fired me. But he was like, but Tito was great, man. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm jumping all over the place.
No, those are the stories. You're correct, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy having you and others come here, because Luis Perico Ortiz says the same thing. Luis Perico Ortiz says that for him, the school wasn't as much the playing as much as that influence, of course, in learning how to play. It was the stories and the after gig stories.
Now I gotta tell you something about Perico, because I played with him. He calls me up. He calls me up and he goes, "Hello, I'm Luis Perico Ortiz," and I'm like going, "Get out of here, man!" You know, and I go, "Man, what? Stop BSing around." He goes, "Ray, my singer Domingo Quiñones gave me your number." I was like, "Oh," because I was rehearsing with Roberto Lugo, and I met Domingo through that. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something, man. Perico, another cat that doesn't get the credit, man. As a master arranger, people talk about him as you know, as a personality in the business, but his arranging, his trumpet playing, and let me tell you something. It wasn't like, yeah, you're in the band, come and play. No, man. I had to sit with him for 3 days at Club Broadway, and we ran through all of his music to make sure that everything was phrased the way that he wanted. He's heavy, man. He's a deep cat, and took a band of cats that would not be the top list on a lot of people's list, because it was always like, well, who are these cats? And man, he would rehearse them and get them to do stuff and phrase. Man, it was another school. Cats, nothing is done like that anymore. Perico was cut from the older school. Mm-hmm. You know, he was old school, and the way that what he demanded from us was total commitment to the music. And it was another ballgame. This was not, you know, I can name other bands where the stuff was kind of like, there were jokes going around and all that kind of, oh man, who's pulling up to here? No, you better pull out of my driveway, yo. I don't know who these people are, man. I'm not here to speak to anybody. Oh no. Oh good, they're pulling out of my driveway. Anyway, get out of my driveway, man. No. So Perico doesn't get credit. Now when I was with Louis Ramirez, man, he was professional and everything. And he always, I mean, here I am, a little kid, and I'm in the trumpet section with Tony Barrero and Larry Spencer. Come on, man. These are like, Larry was for the Fanny All-Stars. I got all the records and I got to become friends with these guys. So during that period of time, man, I was being mentored by like the Larry Spencers, the Tony Barreros, Victor Paz. These are guys that, and Bomberito Zarzuela, these guys, they wanted to make sure that the new cats coming on were going to take care of business. They weren't concerned about, no, que me van a tumbar el guiso. They were concerned about, no, man, this is how we do stuff. So it was an amazing time in Latin music in New York. And then I transferred over to more like the jazz thing, the Latin jazz stuff. You know, I still listen during the time that I was with Mongo. I played with Pete Conde Rodriguez, and that to me was like, that was for Pete. Pete was family. It was family. That was an amazing band. Con una energía, and of course you got Pete there. I played before Pete. I played with Pacheco. Went to Japan with him. I went to Spain with him. Did some long touring in Spain. Pacheco. That's another one. Oh my God, what am I thinking about? What I learned from him, whoa, it was deep. At the hangs, and you know the main thing is, folks, these are just some regular people. You know, they didn't walk in like
Gonguille.
No, man. Like they're gonna do a movie about Tito Puente's life. I hope they get it right, because the reality of it is, it's like, yeah, everybody sees Tito with the sticks gun. Man, I remember one time, man, we were on this European tour. And we are working hard. I'm talking about like airports every day. And it wasn't like a smooth tour. It's like, we're in Rome today. Oh, tomorrow we're in Belgrade. The next day after that, oh, we're in Holland. So it was all over if you look at a map of the European continent, it was a mess. So now we're in Rome and we're like ready to pass out. And because we got to Rome at about 5:00 in the evening, we had to go to a sound check, get to the hotel, a cambiarnos, to go do the gig, to have a 4 a.m. lobby call the next morning. Y para que tú veas, I'm dragging my ass, tired. When I get down to the lobby, Tito estaba ahí perfumado, limpio, afeitadito, like a cat, like a general. Okay?
That was him, TP,
man.
Yeah.
He was taking care of business.
Yeah.
One of the first trips that I did, and I was on the trip with Charlie Sepulveda. We went to Cincinnati. This is when I was subbing on the band. And Tito's on the airplane, and he's got a score of Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra. This is not some rinky-dinky stuff. This is like some heavy-duty classical music. And he wasn't sitting around using it. He wasn't wasting time on the plane. He was analyzing a score of Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra. So just to say that these masters really were on a whole different level. We're on a deep... Jose Madera is an important part of this conversation. He and Johnny Rodriguez are two of the guys that people need to go to and interview those guys, because what they've seen is not getting documented.
We've spoken about that. We have spoken about that.
That needs to be documented, what those cats have seen. And then we could do the same thing and go out to the West Coast and talk about who are the pioneers of the music on the West Coast. Rudy Regalado out in LA. I mean, we played opposite each other in Japan. We did a whole Japanese tour opposite Rudy Regalado's band, and they were killing it. That was no joke. And that was a training ground for a lot of the guys to eventually wind up playing with other bands like Poncho Sanchez, especially. Up in the Bay Area, you got people up there. So, there's so much of this music that happens, and it's important. But I think we need to start talking to the cats that have been there longer than us, and to give some respect to the music. I saw something the other day that kind of bugged me. I'm not going to mention the singer's name. He was a singer, but he was talking about his latest record and how he created the music. And this cat doesn't know an F7 from a hole in the walls. How's he going to create any music? By going da 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 da. Nah, I don't have no respect for that, man. I worked with Mel Torme. Mel Torme could conduct an orchestra. Mel Torme could write the arrangement out. We played arrangements of Mel Torme where he had flutes and alto flutes and clarinet, bass clarinet. It's not a joke. What we do is not a joke. We got to work. Madera has forgotten more than I'll ever remember. So all I'm saying, man, I get a little bit ticked off about the whole thing. I just think, and I'm not going to say, you're saying Viejo and the young guys. I love the young cats, and I encourage them, and I love that I'm seeing so many young cats doing great things. For instance, the Latin Jazz Orchestra that I developed at Purchase College is now directed by the young Boricua that was my lead alto saxophonist, David de Jesus, is now the professor there.
Check it out.
And he's conducting that orchestra.
Check it out. So let's take a pause for a second because we want to talk about this song. No. Hold on. Listen to this.
Oh, people don't know that one. Yeah.
Sailed around his soul, from east to west, from pole to pole, with ego as his drunken captain, greed the mutineer had trapped all reason in the hold. The man who walked across his heart, who took no compass, guide or chart, to rub and tar, his blood congealed, when he found himself revealed, ugly and cold. And the sirens that sing, fire nose with a drink, they'll drag you in for your sins. Now he sits all alone, and it's no place like home, it's empty skin, a bag to keep life souvenirs in. The man who sailed around his soul.
That's Ruben Blades. Yeah. The man who sailed around his soul. Ray Vega on the trumpet.
The man who sailed around his soul.
I have.
That's a hard record to find.
It is. Mike Viñas shared a comment, an anecdote about this song, so I'm going to share it with everybody. Oigan esto. Este es nuestro amigo Mike Viñas. compartiendo información sobre esta canción que están escuchando de Rubén Blades, The Man Who Sailed Around the Soul, con Ray Vega en la trompeta. Oigan.
Hi, everybody. This is Michael Viñas, hoping you're enjoying Con Salsa with Jose Maso. The next song you're about to hear is called The Man Who Sailed Around His Soul. It was a tribute to the band XTC, and Ruben was given the task of interpreting one of their songs. He asked me to produce a song, so I arranged it with the help of my compadre, Oscar Hernandez, who did the horn arrangements. And we gathered the musicians and recorded the song at Skylight Studios in New Jersey. If you notice the orchestration, it's interesting that it was a precursor to what the Spanish Harlem Orchestra would sound like. Listen to Ray Vega on the introduction as he adds his wonderful tone and musicianship to the project.
There you go. The horn section, arranged by Oscar Hernandez. There's Ray. So Mike says that in his mind, as he hears this, he says, you know, this was a precursor. This is like that little seed that was put on Oscar Hernandez's mind when he said, I'm going to put a band together, which would become the Spanish Harlem Orchestra, which you were one of the founding members of the Spanish Harlem Orchestra.
Yeah, I did the first record. Notice I still call it records. Yeah, that was a nice session. I did some gigs afterwards. I did some gigs with the band, and then I also did. They came here for the jazz festival in Vermont, and I played with them here in Vermont. But you know what it was? All of this stuff was coming out of the Eddie Torres dance company that was used to play Monday nights La Tropica, which Oscar was the piano player. So the horn section on that is it was, I think Reynaldo's on that.
Yep,
maybe
Reynaldo's on it. Yep.
Reynaldo's on it. Yeah. It's Tony Barrero on lead trumpet and John Walsh, and I'm playing trumpet and flugelhorn. Those parts are flugelhorn parts. The solo thing. And that was a great session. And I remember that because Oscar was really breaking into a lot of different things.
Right.
I did a movie thing with him for this lady, Wendy Blutz, whatever. I forget what her name was. Wendy something. I did a movie score with Oscar. I did a TV commercial for Dunkin' Donuts with Oscar. Yeah, he was breaking. He was breaking into some other things.
He was.
And we broke into the Spanish Harlem thing just blew up, man. It was. Yes. I'm so happy for him.
So I spoke earlier about you playing percussion. Talk to our audience about that part of your pedigree, because it's not just trumpet playing and composing and arranging. Yeah. Percussion comes into the story.
You know, I mean, I always like percussion stuff. So, hey, I ain't taking that call. You want to take the call, baby? Okay, so they grabbed it over there. So anyway, I played some percussion and you know, screwing around with stuff. But Johnny Almendra would tell me things like, "Hey man, do it, yeah." So that again, Johnny Almendra going, "Mira, Mongo," this guy talks in the microphone. Johnny goes, "Oye, Mongo, toca la campana," and I'm like, "Oh man!" And it wasn't like gong, 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 gong. It was like to play campana and all the 6/8 stuff, And Mongo 6/8 wasn't like other people's 6/8. Mongo took you to the west coast of Africa with his 6/8. So it was like, and then when he would take out the stick and play that, it connected deeply with my 19% of West Africa, as my ancestry.com says. It was like had my DNA go, whoa, yeah. I mean, I felt it. It was so anyway, Mongo encouraged me, and then I got a little chequerito. You go, no, tócalo. So I would go cha, because Nenge, Humberto Hernandez would play the big chequerito with the agbe. So I watched these guys. So what happened was, I decided, let me take some lessons with Louis Balso. who's a great teacher over at what used to be Boys Harbor. So I took like a crash course with him because he knew I wasn't a percussionist, and he was very how shall I say, he was very gracious to me all about, because the thing was, it's like, you know, I mean, but you know, it helped because with Beretta, he was like, "Nah, man, you're playing. I've seen you with Mongo. You're playing with Poncho. I remember I was playing opposite with Poncho in Maryland, someplace, and Papo comes up to me. He gives me the bell. So, Papo Rodriguez. So I played the bell on the night in Tunisia, and I had all the breaks down that they do. You know, because back then, bro, Mongo's band, Poncho's band, and then Poncho's band and Tito's band, we were opposite a lot. Again, why? Because we worked so much. Sadly, you know, I feel bad for the younger generation that doesn't have that opportunity.
That era that you speak of, and obviously, you know, the era from the 1940s, 50s. When you speak about Madera and Dandy, they lived that era as kids, watching parents, and they're learning from them, and then they participated in that era as well. So they go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right until the death of Tito Puente. But they're part of that.
They're part of that pedigree. They were all in it, and you know, I feel good that I was able to a gentleman a friend of mine that was no longer with us, one of the great masters, Mr. Ray Santos. We commissioned him at Purchase to write a whole suite of new music. It's called the Millennium Mambo Suite, and he wrote it for us. And I had wonderful, my God, what a gem! As Ray Barreto would say, he's a prince among men. And Ray Santos was so loving and giving with his time, and talking to my jazz history class at Purchase about him playing at the what is this place, the Palladium, and that how Cannonball Latterly liked to come down to the band but didn't want to hear the mambos. He wanted to hear the tunes with with Graciela singing. And these are the things that go by the wayside. They go by the wayside. That's the information that people need to understand. I remember I had a conversation with Pacheco, and I said, Johnny, has anybody sat with you to seriously interview you? And then his wife, Cookie, says, yeah, hay una gente, tú sabes que quieren hacer algo, but I knew immediately that they were part of like the farándula. La farándula. So all they want to talk about is like, you know, him having dinner with Rita Moreno. They don't want to talk about all the sessions that he did, Pacheco, the sessions that he did, the stuff that he was involved with, the tunes that he was writing, that band, the Fania thing. They want to talk about all the glitz and glamour, which is yeah, it's beautiful, but it's not the meat and potatoes of this music, and it doesn't define who these people are. It doesn't define the real Tito Puente or Ray Barreto or Mario Valsa. Machito, I did one gig with Machito as a 18-year-old kid, but it wasn't a gig. I sat in with the band, and I was still terrible. So you know, there's a great history that goes before us, and we can't squander it. Like I told you, I saw one particular guy. Oh yeah, it's so good if I buy it, and because I think it's really good, and people are like, because he sat there going da 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 da, and somebody wrote the music out. And nah, man, that's an affront to all of the great masters of this music. Respect the music. I don't care how popular you are. You need to respect this music.
So we have a question here. You're a professor. You're an educator.
Yeah.
Just as, you know, Charlie Sepulveda is an educator in Puerto Rico, and we were talking about some of the up and coming young musicians that he has recognized as having this great talent and passion. So there's two questions. One is, what advice can you give to our young musicians who are interested in Latin music? That's number one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Scott Dean, your boy, says, did you ever play with Candido?
I did play with Candido in. I played with Candido in the first time I played with Candido was with a big band contracted by Arturo O'Farrell. Arturo O'Farrell Jr., you know, Arturo.
The son.
And it was these concerts called like Jazz America, and it was us playing the music of Maestro Chico O'Farrell. And I had already been playing with Mongo at the time, and it was great to hang out in the back room with Candy and with Mongo, and Patato was there, and they're talking about what they don't talk about Candy is that he played tres. that he played tres in a group where Mongo played bongo, and it was called Apollo. I didn't know that, but I did play with. Then I did so many things with Bobby Sanabria as another guy. I did a lot of things, but it was just like concerts outside, and Candy was playing congas with us, and Candy wasn't acting like, "Hey, I'm the great Candy," though. He was just like one of the cats, man. And he carried a phone book with him. It was like a photo album, and he had pictures of everybody he played with. It was God bless his soul, man. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but he never ever sipped one drop of alcohol. His thing was no. I live a clean life. God bless him. Yeah, Candy, man. Candy was deep. Now, the other question: what advice do I give to young people? I would say the first and foremost thing is and now that we have the internet, you have access to a lot of the history of the music, and a lot of it is documented, and a lot of the recordings now. If you want to hear the Afro-Cuban Jazz Suite, you just look that up on YouTube, and you can get the whole Afro-Cuban. So look into the history of who came before who, you know, because the baton always gets passed on. You know, who there's groups now, and I love and respect who's ever out here trying to keep salsa, or if they want to call it Latin jazz, which is a different thing, or salsa, which I have my roots in that. I respect the young people that love it enough to want to dedicate themselves. So my blessings to them to try to keep this music alive. But do the due diligence, and do follow in to see, well, cuáles son las bandas. The thing that helps in a big way is that the old records had credits, and that lets you know who's playing with who.
Those liner notes.
So the liner notes were gold.
Yep. Here's an example.
Mike Mossman, that's his chart.
Great Flying Home, Lionel Hampton, Benny Goodman, Cindy Robin.
Yeah, man.
There you have Bobby Parcella in the alto sax, Ray Vega and Michael Philip Mossman, trumpet trades, Mitch Froman, baritone sax, Tito Puente on timbales. You and Michael taking it to that level, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, that's the sound.
Mike Mossman, that's another guy. He's not from our community, but he learned about the music, man. He sat there with Mario, he sat there with Victor Paz, and he learned from these guys. No joke, and he respects and loves the music. You know, yeah, man.
Listen to this. Comes Tito.
That's Maynard.
Ferguson.
That's Maynard at the end of that. That's Maynard.
Ferguson.
He didn't record with us, man. He was always on the road, so we couldn't find the time. So they recorded that on the West Coast. I was supposed to go to that session, but I was supposed to because at the time I just signed with Concord Records, so they were going to send me out to the West Coast. But I was on the road with Tito, to do the overdub to be with the. Yeah, but I couldn't do it. Yeah.
Well, that was great. So we've got some, Mary Kent, outstanding musicianship. Ceci Johnny Ataha.
Ataha, si puede. Yeah, man.
And Navarro's already said the horns are talking to each other, not trying to outshine each other. Amazing phrasing and technical prowess. That right there is an example. You know, I had seen Lionel Hampton on several occasions in San Juan when he played one of the hotels where he just was breaking the records for sold out concerts. And he had a smaller band, so it wasn't like his big Lionel Hampton band. And he was so, I mean, I was like, every time I said, I'm going to come back and see him again. I'm going to come back and see him again because it's just great music. Right. And I said, I heard that. I said, I would imagine what Lionel Hampton would be playing with that band when it had, you know, at that moment, the band that was put together to do this gig. Yeah. So a couple of things here, which are comments from the folks who are watching. Papo, by the way, is with us. He says, "Saludos, mi pana Vega." We did a lot of gigs together back in the days. One funny cat, but a great music. Awesome, man. Great memories. Papo Rodriguez, many blessings.
My man. I love you, Papo, man.
Antonio Vasquez te dice saludos. About Antonio Vasquez. And
man.
Dave Romero comes and says, in the words of the late, great Milton Cardona, ask your mentors who are their mentors.
Bingo.
There you go. That's the way it starts. And Ceci says, humbleness is a virtue, respect the music and the artist. Yeah, we know that. Victor says, thank you for answering the question about what to say to young people. And then Lorig says to us, Chris Washburn in his book, Sounding Salsa, tells a tale when you guys had a duck gunshots in Boys Harbor. His books provide some great background, which is true. I've read that book.
Lorig, I know Lorig. I'm going to kill you, Lorig. Oh, Lorig. My Armenian friend.
Those are the stories.
Good. I'm glad you didn't ask me about that.
Those are the stories. But you know, the fact of the matter is that for many folks, what they see is the performance, right? They see the moment the lights turn on and the MC, or if there is an MC, the band performs and then they leave. Then maybe a few of them have an interaction with the artist afterwards. a few, because many of them may just leave, right?
Right.
But those who are there from the moment the bus arrives, in the sound check, in the back of the room, on the gig, after the gig, eating dinner after the gig. I mean, those precious hours, right, are the moments that are just so rich. Because
that's the gig, man.
They're rich.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
The 2 hours on stage is just the performance. The other part is the total picture.
The total picture. And if you are not willing to close yourself off and open your mind up to what's going on, you're going to miss it. You know, I mean, man, Bobby Rodriguez, the bass player, I got to play with the greatest. I mean, listen, I played with Cachao. I played with Cachao in a year before he passed away. I played with Cachao in Europe, and I think he's one of the great masters. And he's an important part. Cachao is Cachao, always will be Cachao. But I got to play with Bobby Rodriguez, man. And Bobby had another stank going on. I call it the stank. He had another thing going on. And I got to hear stories from Bobby, from Sonny Bravo, from Johnny Rodriguez. I mean, come on, Madera. I mean, again, history needs to be documented. And it's not just about the Latin jazz part of it. I'm talking about the roots of man, in New York City alone, not just, if I could just talk about New York, every borough had their thing. You'd go to Boys Harbor or the Johnny Cologne Music School, and you'd walk out, and 2 doors down, there was a social club, and there was a salsa band in there. Chamaquito from the neighborhood in there practicing bilongo, whatever. The music was in the air. It was happening. What do we need to do to bring it back? That's your third time you're going to bring me on the radio show, so we could talk about that.
Yeah, I know.
We didn't even talk about jazz radio.
Well, we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten there yet, because we're going to slide into that now. And one of the things, you know, you speak about the opportunity to see things live. So today, Johnny Rodriguez posted a picture of Bobby Allende with Willie Bobo when Bobby Allende was a little kid.
Yeah, chamaquito.
Un chamaquito. Bobby Allende, the same thing with him and Mark Quiñones, right? Look,
Rumberito.
Rumberito. Remember, they were like 8 years old, 9 years old, whatever they were, right?
Yeah, man.
But these cats, they ate, drank, slept this music 24/7. It was like, you know, it would be like math, science, social studies. No, them is like music, and they were just like there, and they were just eating it all up and drinking.
What I say that is, that's like a little part of what happens in the New Orleans tradition of the street musician, of the street band, of the brass band. You get a little cat out there. I always tell this to my students. I saw Trombone Shorty when Shorty was a short little guy. Okay, I saw him when he was a little kid, and I saw Christian Scott. Although Christian Scott comes out of he's out of the New Orleans Indian tradition. But you take these little cats out there, and this is why it's important to have music around. You take these cats, and all of a sudden somebody passes a horn to a little 6-year-old kid and go, "Here, man, play with your uncle, man." The little kid's not gonna know nothing. But 3 years later, he's going to be Nicholas Payton and killing it. So that's what the deal is with Bobby. Bobby, Mark, and Jose Jusino, Juicy, all those guys who were rumberitos, Bobby Allende's brother. Allende, remember, their uncle was Angel Allende that played congas with Buddy Rich and all these other groups. Because those cats sat in with Buddy Rich. I'm talking about the Mark and those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, not Mark. I think it was Bobby Allende. But the point that I'm trying to make is that's the importance of being around the music 24/7 and drinking it in. And it's not a thing of study. It's just a thing of it is.
Experiencing it.
It's just experiencing it and watching it. I mean, you got to see his uncle Angel Allende and then all the people that Angel Allende was playing with. And let's face it, back in the day, it wasn't illegal to play congas on the street. You can thank Rudy Giuliani for that.
Yeah, that's true. That's what they call in pedagogy experiential learning, or you're learning by experience. Here's something. Listen to this. That's Ray from Squeeze Squeeze La Tercera.
Chambo.
Yeah. Chembo con él. Loving that. So you're going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's for La Tercera, 3rd Avenue in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
The hub, South Bronx.
the third Avenue.
3rd Avenue,
So,
baby.
So Jose says, we went through those moments a lot together in buses and green rooms and eating and just having a great time at time. Yes. It was Tito's band, Poncho's band, and Mongo's band. That was a great era.
Chacho.
And those of us who were fortunate, you know, my wife and I always speak about this, that I've been blessed to be in the company of so many of you. You know, Papo, that's one when we were that was when we were Pancho performed in the Tanglewood Jazz Festival. I was the MC. Wow. There was a review. You're gonna love this, Ray. There was a review, and it starts off after the longest introduction in history. Poncho finally got to play, and I said, "Hey, yo, I had a lot to say."
That's right. Don't give a microphone to Boricua. I
had a lot to say. I was saying a lot of the history. I was saying, "Okay, let me let you know," you know. But
right on, man.
But it was the important part of just putting things in the context. So, one of the interesting things is you're humble in saying that you were just un chamaquito, and you were, you know, when you sat in with Machito, you know, un chamaquito, yo ni sabía cómo tocar, etcétera, etcétera. But then when you really develop the chops that get you into jazz, I don't want to call it Latin jazz, just jazz, right? Because there's the album Operation, where you give tribute to all these great, you know, from Chet Baker to you name them. I mean, you got like the who's who of jazz. Yeah. Tell us about that jazz tinge that all of a sudden seeps into your blood and becomes very much part of your pedigree.
That was part of my thing from like high school. Mm-hmm. And then when Doc Russell, I would do gigs with Doc Russell. We were playing jazz, and with Doc Russell, man, I learned like his entire repertoire by ear. They weren't giving out charts. Me and his son David, we knew these tunes by ear. We would go and do gigs, and it had nothing to do with Latin music. It was all straight ahead jazz, you know. So the jazz stuff was always there. I think my chops got strong when I got on like Tito's band, because I had to get physically stronger on the instrument. Mm-hmm. Physically stronger. I mean, my chops developed, and I think once I got on Tito's band is when just the overall technical stuff got together. I still, man, when you locked me into this thing, I told you, I can hear you playing. I said, oh, don't tell anybody, because I still practice, man.
No, I saw you practicing. You were practicing. You had the horn.
If I could put in an hour and a half a day, I want to be able to do that, because this thing doesn't like people. Mm-hmm. You know, this thing is rough. But I mean, I got into the jazz, and I always listened to it. I had issues of, again, dyslexia, which made learning theory difficult and always challenging, and reading chord progressions is always difficult. But I remember just, you know, trumpet players like Irvin Stokes, who played with Illinois Jacquette's band. He's a trumpet player that mentored a lot of cats, a lot of young jazz guys. Irvin Stokes told me, well, if you try something, it doesn't work, try it again. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just try some stuff, work on your stuff. And they weren't like, they were very supportive, So I learned how to play the music through like a real supportive environment, So I always loved the music. And I mean, bottom line is I'm still trying to figure out how to play it. I still study, and I mean, I teach it. I have my concepts of how to teach jazz improvisation to young people. You know what I'm saying? I have my systems that I use that that are very successful, by the way. But it's hey man, it's work. It's work, and you gotta dedicate to it. And I tell my students I deal with music 24/7. I go because I suffer from something called Meniere's disease, so I have problems with my inner ear. I have tinnitus in my right ear. So what I do is so the tinnitus doesn't drive me crazy. I listen to music at nighttime when I lay in bed. I just listen to music. So I'm listening to music all the time.
Speaking about listening to music, as we close this conversation, and we're going to have another one, and you know that you're going to be part of the roundtable discussion when we bring Chris Washburn back to do part two of the Land Jazz, the other jazz. So as we close this, your Friday night jazz program.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, what happened was my friend Reuben Jackson, who's a great poet and lover and knowledgeable man of the music, he was going to leave the Burlington, Vermont area and go back to his home in the DC area. So they needed a somebody to host a show. I had never done that before. So they contacted me because they wanted to ask my opinion about jazz radio. And I shared my ideas and thoughts about it. Then they said, would you be open to do it? And I was like, I thought to myself, like, man, I have enough, my schedule is crazy enough as it is. And I went, yeah, I mean, if I could learn how to do it. So I started in May of 2018, and we do it every Friday. It's a 3-hour radio show. And the gentleman that was here, Jaime was the other DJ that was
Jaime
here.
Rodriguez, from Puerto Rico.
Right. And I think my brother from Denver,
Arturo Gomez.
Arturo Gomez. I mean, what we have to do is we toe an interesting line here, because the thing is, I cannot in a 3-hour show. I would love to be able to do the entire Love Supreme work. I just think the way to keep the music connecting to people is that you got to give them stuff that isn't necessarily for just like the all out like jazzers that want to hear, Ascension by John Coltrane, not to put that down, or a large work like the Afro-Cuban Jazz Suite, which I have played. But the thing is that we have to in order, and like in a place like Puerto Rico, you're going to have to give them the Chet Bakers. You're going to have to give them the things that bring people to want to listen to the music. It can't always be so esoteric. So now I'm not speaking like a musician. I'm speaking like a radio person. And I've always thought this way. It's just that if we make it so difficult for the listener to be bought in, we're going to lose an audience. And listen, Mongo played pop tunes, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Puente played pop tunes.
Oh, yeah.
Barreto told me when we were putting together Ancestral Messages, he goes, there's a lot of good music on this, and it's worthy of a Grammy, but it's accessible. He goes, there's nothing wrong with intelligent music that's accessible. If we don't start thinking, I mean, listen, and I make this joke a lot of times. I'll hear music from some young cats, and I just feel like telling them, listen, I am sorry that I missed the hour-and-a-half lecture on quantum physics before I can go and actually listen to your music. And I'm being sarcastic, but it's the truth. It's like, to whom are you writing this music for? Are we going to create a music that is so abstract that we lose an audience? Mongo never sold himself out. He may have had Watermelon Man, but when he got up on stage, man, there was no joke about him being a connection to West Africa. It was no joke. When Puente got on that stage, and he liked to joke around with the audience, but he knew the history. He knew on whose shoulders he was standing on. Okay? So and again, an intelligent musician, because you want a charts written, Puente can sit there and write you out a chart. Perico, the same thing. Louis Ramirez, Jose Madera, they can write the chart out here. No piano, nothing. Ahí está. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, but they know how to create stuff that keeps the listener wanting to listen. Arturo Sandoval told me something really interesting. Arturo's an old friend of mine. He goes, "Oye, Veguita," he calls me Veguita. "Oye, Veguita, ¿sabes algo? Los músicos no compran disco." And I went, "You're right, bro." "Oye, Veguita," that's what he calls me, my man Arturo Sandoval. He says, "Oye, Veguita, los músicos no compran disco." And he's right. So as radio people, we throw an interesting thing. I mix it up. Sometimes I do an hour of salsa at the end, and sometimes I'll play ornette. I'll play some stuff from like Knitting Factory era kind of stuff. But I can't do. I had something planned from one of my earlier shows, and my wife Cookie, who's a great singer and everything, and she's been around me for years, so she knows my craziness. She goes, "I think you're asking a lot from your audience with that piece that you want to play." She goes, "That's more about you being a musician. Now think about a person like me who wants to hear this on a Friday night. You're asking a lot of that individual. Now, if you get something that's shorter than that to create an interest for it." But that's the issue that our friend Jaime has in Puerto Rico. He has a 1 hour show.
He's got
so you can't play 9-minute pieces. And I remember when I first recorded for Palmetto Records, the lady who was the wife of the guy who ran the label, she heard my record and she goes, "Wow, finally somebody who actually wants to sell records and have their radio stuff played on the radio." Because she dug the fact that I was thinking about radio play. Now I'm looking at tunes like, what's 5 minutes? I do that because I'm trying to give as much music during that 3-hour period. So it's a complicated conversation.
No, it is.
But we do what we do, and I want to be able to still educate, build up, and inform people, make them with the music that I'm playing on the radio show. I want to build them up, let them hear some stuff that's going to be uplifting. Lord only knows we need some uplifting these days.
God knows.
God knows. You know what I'm saying? My Friday night show, I had gospel music on that.
No, I hear you. So
Trust the Lord, baby.
I listen to you on Fridays, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing the show. I listen to Bobby every time I can, and then when I can't hear him live, I'll hear to his archive music and shows, et cetera, because my ears are always open to hear from other folks who are doing this kind of music, because I learn. I pick up things that I haven't heard, and I say, "Oh, wow, I didn't know about that guy, or I didn't hear about that."
And I heard a bunch of stuff you played the same thing earlier. I'm like going, "Whoa, I got to get my hands on that."
And so anyway, as we conclude, here's some last thoughts. So Ed Navarro says, live music is also part of music education and developing as a musician. Victor Rivera gives you thanks. Maestro, thank you for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your musical anecdotes. Que Dios te bendiga.
God bless you guys. Amen, brother.
Lorig, our dear friend, says, gracias, Rey, bendiciones, condolences para ti, Cookie. Andy Harlow said,
Dígalo.
Hola también. Andy Harlow.
Lorig, I love you, Lorig. Oh, my Lorig.
Lorig, the great Lorig. So anyway, you know how much love I have for you. Divina and I have so many fond memories. Your sense of humor is special, and I'm glad that people were able to see that, knowing very well that you're going through some hard times, but we just appreciate you, brother. We appreciate you. We have deep respect and admiration for who you are and for what you've done and what you continue to do. And let's make sure that we connect again. You're going to be part of the roundtable when we do part 2 with Chris, and then we're going to do another one of these, God willing, where you can share some more of your deep knowledge and information. We can dig into some other things as well. And some people here are saying thank you. Great spending time with Maestro Vega. Thanks for another invitation. Come visit us in California. God willing, we will.
I love California.
Mary Kent says very enjoyable.
Love you, Mary. Thank you for everything.
And David Romero says, God bless you, Ray. My brother Ray, God bless you. Give my regards to Cookie. Give her a hug and a kiss,
You got it.
All right.
Thank you, bro.
Dios te bendiga. Gracias a ti.
Bye-bye.
Cuídate.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Let's get together.
ask, is there a place for the hopeless sinners who has hurt all mankind? Just a Savior's own belief. One love. What about a one heart? What about let's get together and feel alright? As it was in the beginning, one love. So shall it be in the end. One heart. Alright. Thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. One more thing. Let's get together to fight this holy Armageddon. One love. So when the man comes, there will be no doom. One song. Have pity on those whose chances grow thin. There ain't no hiding place from the Father of creation. Yeah, yeah. One love. What about the one heart? What about the let's get together and feel alright? I'm fleeing to mankind. One heart. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Is the last time I get together and
All right, so we got to the end of today's program. I want to thank Ray Vega once again. Our condolences to him, his wife Cookie, on the passing of his mother-in-law Pilar. Our condolences. You're in our prayers, and we thank you for spending time with us, Ray, to share your many, many words of wisdom. And to all of you who tuned in today, thank you so much for being part of the Con Salsa family. Next weekend, my guest will be Chembo Corniel on Saturday and Sammy Figueroa on Sunday. It promises to be a great weekend of great conversation and music. Y a todos ustedes, gracias por la atención prestada este fin de semana. Ayer, el trompetista Charlie Sepúlveda, desde su hogar en Luquillo, Puerto Rico, con anécdotas, comentarios, información, historia, también música. Y hoy, otro artista de trompeta, también educador y director de su propia agrupación musical, también anfitrión de su programa de radio, el Gran Rey Vega. Así que ambos, sábado y domingo, la dupleta en la trompeta. Y el próximo fin de semana, Chembo Corniel el sábado y Sammy Figueroa el domingo. Para todos ustedes, muchas bendiciones, paz y aché. Latino, defiende lo tuyo con orgullo. Todos unidos entre amigos, uno para todos y todos para uno. Será hasta el próximo sábado, si Dios permite, cuando estaremos nuevamente con ustedes. Otra edición más de Con Salsa en vivo por Facebook y YouTube. Dejen saber a sus amistades, su familia, para que sean parte de la familia Con Salsa. El abrazo, que Dios os bendiga. Thank you again, once again. Blessings, peace, love, and mucho aché to each and every one of you. We want to thank you for being part of the Con Salsa family. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for who you are and for what you do. Together, we will make a difference. And make sure when you go out, wear a mask. Wash your hands often, 6 feet distance, so that we will be safe, all right? My dear friend Michael Viñas, I want to thank you for your collaboration and your help in tonight's program. And also to our cousin in Florida, Victor Rivera. He was the one that suggested One Love, the song by Bob Marley. Victor said that as he left his house of worship this morning, that song came to his mind. He shared it with me. I said, spot on. We will share it today to end the program. So thank you for sharing that. Until next weekend, God bless. Take care. Be safe. All right?
esta noche